Do you know the difference between sympathy and empathy? While often used interchangeably, these two terms have distinct origins and meanings that can dramatically shift the context of our interactions. Sympathy, an emotion we often feel for someone, made its debut in the English language in the late 16th century. It was a rather broad term, describing the relationship between two entities sharing certain qualities or influencing each other. For instance, if a headache invariably led to a stomach ache, you might sympathize with the idea of a discounted consultation fee for frequent visits to the town doctor. Over time, however, sympathy evolved to describe an emotional connection born from shared experiences. The concept of putting yourself in another's shoes began to take root. Edmund Burke, a philosopher from the 18th century, saw sympathy as a form of substitution, where we place ourselves in the position of another and feel to a certain extent what they feel. Now let's talk about empathy. Unlike sympathy, empathy was coined more than a century later, and it initially referred to the relationship between individuals and aesthetics. The term empathy originated from the German word Einfühlung, a term introduced by philosopher Robert Vischer in the 1870s. He used it to describe the pleasure derived from art and nature, suggesting that we involuntarily inject our emotions into inanimate objects like paintings or mountains. By the early 20th century, English philosophers had translated Einfühlung into empathy and expanded its usage to describe how humans transfer their emotions onto each other. Thus, empathy evolved into a sociological term, sometimes echoing what sympathy already meant. Fast forward to today, and the debate between sympathy and empathy continues. Philosopher Charles Edward Gauss once said, "In sympathy I feel with, in empathy I feel in." Psychologists Nancy Eisenberg and Janet Strayer described empathy as feeling with another person, while sympathy is feeling for someone. So what does this all mean for you? Your interpretation of empathy or sympathy in any given situation might require years of psychological and philosophical study. And even then, scholars may disagree with your choice, but don't let that deter you. Given that language is constantly evolving, feel free to use either term based on your understanding and intuition, because at the end of the day, what truly matters is the authentic connection and understanding we foster with one another.